What's up, y'all? I recently spent a month in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and today I thought it'd be a great time to break down some of what I experienced day to day, as well as how much you can expect to spend on different things while there. So if that's something that interests you, be sure you stay tuned. Now, for those of you guys who aren't familiar with Puerto Vallarta is actually a resort town on Mexico's Pacific coast. So it's in the state of Jalisco, which is on the west side of Mexico, an area known for more of its beaches and for being really popular for different types of water sports that I saw was really popular over there. Now, before I jump into the different pricing, it was definitely much more expensive than my previous visit to Mexico. Now, this was to be expected because at this point I'm in more of a resort town that was much more touristy and seemed geared towards Americans and Canadians. And one thing that made me laugh was seeing how many locals actually spoke English. And I'm talking about dang near perfect English. That kind of goes to show you how many English speakers are coming through this city. Now, when I was in Guadalajara, Mexico, which was the first place that I went to whenever I went to visit Mexico, it was much more of a local vibe. Now, Guadalajara is, I believe, still the second biggest city in Mexico, and it's a lot more of, I think I would say, it's more of like economical city, right? It's kind of a city where people come to work. There's a lot of big multinational companies there. It was more of a different vibe. That city wasn't necessarily a touristy type of city necessarily. Definitely not as much as Puerto Vallarta. Puerto Vallarta is more one of those cities where obviously you're gonna have foreigners that are coming there, but also Mexicans in general, whenever they're trying to go for vacation, they might even go to Puerto Vallarta and spend a couple days out there, right? Or spend a weekend out there. Now, first I want to touch on the rent. Now, I rented out one Airbnb. I had a 2-bedroom apartment with a wraparound balcony, which was pretty dope. And that was located in a prime spot. Now, what I really loved about it is that I was literally just a few blocks away from the famous boardwalk, or Malecon as they call it, in Puerto Vallarta. And on top of that, I was literally 1 block from the beach. So I literally had both of some of the most popular, the key features of the city and easy access to me. Now, when it comes to cost, I paid a little over $1,500. It was $1,539.75 for 28 nights. Now, this is probably one of the more expensive places that I've stayed at, and it was actually slightly outside of my preferred budget. I typically try to stay at or below $1,500, but for what I got, it was worth it, okay? So I understood that also, one, I was in a super touristy town, and 2, I was in a prime part of the touristy town. So for me, it was well worth it. Now, I was in such a dope location. I used to literally walk to the Malecon or the boardwalk at night sometimes. I would just, if I had been working or had a long day, I would just at night just walk up and down the boardwalk. It's dope seeing, there's a lot of people who are obviously on a vacation, especially around the time I was there. It's kind of like sort of the spring break-ish, but also, people taking time off with their families, things like that. And so it was always packed pretty much every night. So I would walk up and down the Malecon to kind of get a breath of the fresh air. And what was so good was that it felt so good walking with the ocean breeze. You could feel literally you can hear the waves, you can feel the breeze coming from the ocean, and it was amazing, man. It was definitely, I think that's what really made me realize how much I was happy about my location because of just that me being able to have, it was more of a relaxing trip, one of the more relaxing trips that I've had. Now, the only real issue I had, and one thing that did kind of stress me out a little bit, was the repeated internet connectivity issues. I had a lot of issues with the internet. That can be pretty annoying when you're working from your computer. But luckily, other than that, everything was pretty much good. I also had a grocery store that was, just a few blocks away. Tons of food options. Literally just 5 minutes walking from my place in any direction, you would be able to find some sort of a food spot, whether it's like a taco truck, a restaurant, whatever the case may be. And the fact that the beach was so close, literally, I'm gonna have to show you guys a video. It was literally so close that's what really made it the icing on the cake. I could literally walk from my house to the actual beach in like probably 30-40 seconds or something, right? From my house, from the front door of my house. So I'll have to show you guys a clip so y'all can actually see this, but it was crazy how fast that I was able to go from my apartment straight to the beach. So of course, you know what I was doing after work. Sometimes I would just head out to the beach and just relax, do some journaling, whatever the case may be. Now guys, if you enjoyed these types of videos, be sure you hit the subscribe button. That way you don't miss it. I'm constantly shooting videos. As you can see, I'm in a different place. I'm currently in Casablanca, Morocco. I've been trying to go to Morocco for years now. I finally made it down here, and this is gonna be the next place that I'm gonna be shooting a video about. So be sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it whenever I do release that video. Now, a quick quick mention on the economy here in Puerto Vallarta, or here in the city Puerto Vallarta. Be very careful, as the city is quite literally lives on tourism, okay? And so what that means is, you know, I realized after the pandemic, I don't think everything has gone back to what it really was before, okay? And I've heard that in many places. Even here in Morocco, people are telling me the same thing. I've heard it in cities even before I went to Puerto Vallarta. A lot of things have changed and tourism hasn't gone back to what it was previously. That being said, you got to be careful with people trying to take advantage of you. And people will try to overcharge you for things. They're going to try to take more in tips than what you may want to give, things like that. So you got to be really careful. The vast majority of locals that I interacted with there were nothing but nice and helpful, but you still need to be aware of that 1% of the people who will try to take advantage of you. So you just got to be mindful. And I think part of it, what it is like, if you're going to go on vacation somewhere, which a lot of the people, see, I'm there for a month. A lot of people are just, they're there for a week or 2 weeks. And this is kind of a trip where they're like, they doing a trip, you know, once a year, you know, twice a year, whatever the case may be. And this is one of those vacations where they say in their minds, you know, I'm willing to spend $2,000 to $3,000 on this trip. And so even though they might be at a restaurant or something and they're getting overcharged, they might even know they're getting overcharged. In their mind, it might not matter much because, hey, it's not a problem because I know that I have a budget that I can cover it with the budget I have. If instead of me paying $10 for some food, I'm paying $15, it's all right because I'm supposed to be spending total for this day, I have $300 to spend or something. And I think that's kind of why there's quite a few people that are trying to take advantage, is because they know that, hey, these people are only here for so long, might not come back. Why not try to get as much as I can out of them? But again, a lot of the people that I met were super nice, super helpful, and it's only a small minority of people that are doing something like that. It's more of you want to be mindful of what's going on. And when it comes to food was generally pretty cheap. Depending on where you were going, I could eat at taco stands outside that would, you know, they would give me tacos for pretty much about, you know, let's say $1 a piece or 18 to 25 pesos each. But I could also go to restaurants that would be a lot more upscale and might cost, you know, $40 to $50 per person. So you really have the range and you're able to find exactly what you're looking for. But I will tell you, Mexico has some of the best food that I've eaten outside of the US.
There we go. I already started, but tostadas hidden with a beach view. Let's stay hidden. I cannot complain.
Pretty much all the taco stands that we're going to were nice, man. Their food was super good. Except, funny enough, the one that was closest to my house was pretty bad. But I think the guy was kind of it was kind of one of those where, like, he's not really cooking it. It's kind of like he cooked everything once and then he just kind of like reserving it. It's like he's not cooking. It's not kind of how do you say, like, made to order, I should say. And so if you go to places where they're literally cooking it as soon as you order it, oh man, those places are amazing, man. There's so many dope places that I went to where I ate, you know, tacos that were bomb, even sandwiches, right? Or hamburgers, or more so chicken sandwiches, what I was eating. There's some dope places that had dope chicken sandwiches as well, and so on and so forth. Now, when it comes to transportation, I pretty much stuck to Uber for most of my transportation there, and the rides were, you know, relatively cheap in general. I was paying below $5 unless I was going to like the airport. If I was going to the airport that was, you know, a bit further outside of the city, that might cost me closer to $10. But most of my rides were below $5, so, you know, I could get wherever I needed to with the Uber. But also, I was located in such a good area that it was really easy for me to go just walking instead of having to take a Uber. And I enjoyed walking a lot more anyways, and so that's what I was doing a lot of the time, was just kind of walking to whatever destinations I needed to get to. Now, when it comes to excursions, one main one I did was visit Yalapa and Mijahuites Beach, and that cost me $64, but it was a $64 well worth it, man. I was able to visit 2 different beaches. Pretty much they took us on a sort of like a, it's not a catamaran, but it's kind of like a, sort of like a, not even a yacht boat, I wouldn't even call it, but it was kind of this large boat. They pretty much took us to these different beaches. We received breakfast and lunch. So breakfast was on the boat ride on the way to the first beach. And then the first beach was, I think, was Yalapa. I might be wrong though. So on the way to the first beach, we got breakfast, and then we got lunch when we actually stayed at Mijahuites, which I think is the second beach, where I actually had like fajitas and things like that. The breakfast was more of like a Mexican breakfast, which to me it's kind of almost feels kind of like, not necessarily nachos, but it's kind of like sort of tortilla chips with, they put like a cheese and kind of a salsa and things like that, and it was okay. But what was really good was the fajitas that I had whenever I got to, when we were eating on the beach, which was really dope. In between that, we also got to choose some water activities to do. So I chose to do some kayaking and got to kayak around as well. And we also got to visit a waterfall. That was pretty dope. One thing that sucked is I thought that we were going to be actually riding 4-wheelers, but it ends up that like we were getting driven in four-wheelers, which to me wasn't as cool, but you know, it is what it is. So it was still, nonetheless, the trip was still pretty bomb. The only thing I would probably change is instead of doing the excursion out to the waterfall, I probably would have just stayed on the beach. And I even saw a guy who was doing some, he was giving rides, parasailing rides, so I probably would have done that instead. But other than that, I did do some more beach hopping on, essentially on my own and with friends, and that it was kind of just involved traveling to a beach that was like 30 or 40 minutes outside of Puerto Vallarta, and then we had to take, you know, like a short boat taxi out there. Now I don't remember the exact price, but it was something that was well worth it. I kind of realized that at this point I was realizing, you know, there were so many different beaches out there that you could literally spend your days just hopping around to different ones and kind of checking out what the vibe is, right, at each one. Now there's a beach out there that's literally a party beach. I actually didn't even make it out there, but people were telling me that literally, you know, it's pretty much people just partying on the entire beach. It's kind of like almost like a club that's just on the beach, right? They're playing music, they're handing out drinks, everything like that. And so really it's kind of based off of whatever vibe you want, right? There's more family friendly beaches, there's more beaches where it's just straight up partying, and there's beaches in between. So it just depends on what kind of vibe you're specifically looking for. Other than that, I also got to do a swim with the dolphins type of thing, which was also about $64. Now this gave me access to a water park that I could, you know, play in the water park, but you know, I was there for a little bit, but my main goal was just like, oh, I came strictly for the dolphins. And so eventually I got to hang out with the dolphins. It was pretty dope, but I will say, if I could go back, I wouldn't even do this specific excursion, because I found out that you could actually, there's a way to actually be with dolphins, but actually out in the wild, right? Where you actually take a boat out into an area where the dolphins are at, which to me is a lot cooler. But this one wasn't bad either, because you got to see the dolphins do tricks and things like that, which was really dope. Also on top of that, we also got a lunch, which was, I can't remember exactly what it was. It might have been like a hamburger or something, or a hot dog. I can't remember, but it was nothing too crazy, but it was dope that you get a little something extra as well. Now, what do I wish I would have done? There was nothing much left over. I just didn't get a chance to just do jet skis, and I wanted to do some parasailing while I was out there. Even though both were literally at the beach right by my place, I wasn't able to do it for a myriad of reasons, but you know, it happens. So at the end of the day, it's all good. I still had a dope time out there, so I can't complain. In terms of final thoughts, I think it was a dope time spent here. I enjoyed Mexico as always, and though I had fun, I will say that this city, to me personally, it doesn't seem like the city that I'll be like running back to anytime soon, right? I think that it's one that it's worth visiting. I think that if someone asks me that you go to Puerto Vallarta, I'll recommend it to them. I'll say, hey, yeah, you definitely should go check it out. But I think that it's one city that maybe you won't necessarily feel drawn to again and again, right? It's one of those cities, and again, your mileage may vary, but for me, I found that I wasn't really drawn to come back to that city necessarily again. And it really just depends. You know, I met a lot of people who said that, hey, you know, yeah, I came here, I don't see myself coming back here again. I'll go visit other parts of Mexico. But I also met a lot of people who love the city so much that they were even moving out there. I met some people that, you know, some Americans that have condos out there. I met some other Americans that they're more like digital nomads that were living out there, right? So take my statements with a grain of salt. There's definitely people who love Puerto Vallarta so much that they're willing to move out there. So you kind of have both of those sides, right? So hopefully you enjoyed this. Guys, be sure that you check out the rest of my 1 month travel playlist from me spending a month in other locations. I'll even be shooting one from here where I currently am in Casablanca, Morocco pretty soon as well. So be sure that you hit the subscribe button and you check out that playlist. I'll link to it somewhere here. That way you can keep up to date. Alrighty guys, so I appreciate y'all watching, and I'll see you at the next one. Peace.